There is a lot to cheer about India's defence sector. The country is all set to establish itself as a leading player in the field of defence exports. According to a latest report, India's defence exports have increased 23 times in the last 9 years. More than 100 companies are involved in production of defence equipment at present. These efforts are giving a tremendous boost to India's Make in India initiatives. The country is not only moving towards self-reliance in the defence sector, but is now emerging as a key player in the field of defence exports. For the current financial year, India has exported defence equipment worth more than 21,000 crore rupees, which includes military hardware, that is ammunition and weapons. This is almost 3,000 crore rupees more than last year, the highest in the last 9 years, and 23 times more than defence exports in 2014. The initiatives undertaken by the government to transform India into a defence equipment manufacturing hub and exporting defence products seem to be producing results. The government's plan to promote exports in the defence sector seems to be bearing fruit. With a huge jump of 23 times in the last 9 years, India's defence exports this year have amounted to a total of 16,000 crore rupees. During the last financial year, this was worth 13,000 crore rupees. India is exporting defence equipment, technology and ammunition. The chief buyers of India's defence exports include Southeast Asian countries, the USA, Philippines, as well as countries in the Middle East and Africa. India's private sector has a share of 70% in defence exports, while public sector units have a 30% share in the market. Nearly 100 companies in India are now involved in defence exports. The number of countries buying arms and weapons technology from India has gone up to 85. The country is rapidly moving towards the goal of self-reliance in defence production. This has contributed to the huge jump in defence exports. While India's defence exports amounted to 686 crore rupees in 2013-14, this year the numbers have increased to 16,000 crore rupees. There was a time when India was among the leading importers of defence equipment. This position has now transformed into the country positioning itself as a credible and trusted exporter of high-end defence technology. India's defence products have gained special recognition across the world in a very short span of time. Several steps taken by the government to promote defence exports, including simplifying the export process and making it industry-friendly, made this transition easier. Policy reforms over the last 9 years, including the use of end-to-end digital technologies through online exports, helped cut red tapeism while also simplifying the ease of doing business. As India becomes increasingly self-reliant in indigenous design, development and manufacturing of defence equipment, the day is not far when Indian soldiers will be equipped with 100% indigenous equipment. India's dependence on foreign countries for defence equipment was 46% of the total expenditure in 2018-19, while in 2022 it was about 37%. Today, India exports major defence platforms like Dornier 228, 155mm advanced towed artillery guns, BrahMos missiles, Akash missile system, radars, simulators, mine-protected vehicles, armoured vehicles, Pinaka rockets and launchers, ammunitions, thermal imagers, body armors, systems, line replaceable units, and parts and components of avionics and small arms. There is a growing global demand for the indigenous light combat helicopters, Tejas, aircraft carriers, and MRO activities. India's defence sector was strong even before independence. There were 18 ordnance factories in the country around the time. Many types of army equipment, including cannon, was made in India, while it was an important supplier even during the Second World War period. India's howitzer guns were among the best weapons of the time. A large quantity of weapons were exported from India, but the defence sector was neglected in between as India became the largest importing country in the world. In the last 9 years, the situation has improved due to the special attention paid by the government. Over the years, the government not only increased the defence budget, but also ensured that this was used for the development of the defence manufacturing ecosystem in the country. Today, Indian companies are among chief suppliers of equipment for the Indian Armed Forces. A large proportion of the budget is spent on purchasing weapons and equipment from indigenous companies. India's BrahMos is much in demand. At present, the Indian Army has made a list of more than 300 weapons and equipment which will be made in India. It won't be long before India becomes completely self-reliant. To continue the rapid strides in defence exports, some issues need to be addressed. It is pertinent to increase the coordination between the Defence Ministry, the tri-services, private manufacturers and government companies engaged in defence production. This is significant, especially in arms exports and in identifying those domestic defence products that can be effectively promoted in the overseas market. A conservative approach to defence exports is still seen. Little action has been taken on earlier Defence Committee recommendations. Policymakers have to take greater action in this regard. India has achieved a lot of success in its journey of defence exports. Yet, it still has a long way to go to join ranks as one of the world's biggest arms exporters. An encouraging institutional framework has been put in place to pursue India's defence export agenda. However, India will have to continue the reforms along with working on new ideas to increase its defence exports to $5 billion. Only then will it be able to become one of the 20 largest arms exporters in the world, which will further boost its economy. This is also crucial to strengthening its national security. Defence exports have touched a record 21,083 crore rupees in the financial year 2023-24, registering a growth of 32.5% over the last fiscal. During the last year, this figure stood at 15,920 crore rupees. The recent figures indicate that defence exports have grown by 31 times over the past decade. The defence industry, including the private sector and defence public sector undertakings, have made tremendous efforts in achieving highest ever defence exports. The private sector and the DPSUs have contributed about 60% and 40% respectively. There has been a rise in the number of export authorizations issued to the defence exporters during financial year 2023-24. From 1,414 export authorizations in financial year 2022-23, the number jumped to 1,507 in financial year 2023-24. A comparative data of 2 decades, that is, the period from 2004-5 to 2013-14 and 2014-15 to 2023-24 reveals that there has been a growth of 21 times in defence exports. Total defence exports during 2004-5 to 2013-14 were 4,312 crore rupees, which went up to 88,319 crore rupees in the period from 2014-15 to 2023-24. This remarkable growth has been achieved due to the policy reforms and ease of doing business initiatives that were implemented by the government, besides the end-to-end digital solution provided to the Indian industries for promoting defence exports. This growth is a reflection of global acceptability and recognition of India's defence products and technologies.